Believe it or not, I think I've disturbed Mr. Carter somewhere in Los Angeles, awakened him, and he's a gracious gentleman, and it's good to have you on the line. Good morning and good evening to you in Los Angeles, Benny.
Well, it's evening here and morning there, and good morning, good evening, and you didn't disturb me, you awakened me, but that's not really any disturbance. I'm accustomed to that.
Well, I'm sure you are, for the multitudes of one-night stands from Europe to Asia and South America and here in this continent.
Well, it's all part of a long career.
Yes, and you know, I don't know, you and I haven't really had a chance to talk in advance, but during World War II, there were two Minneapolis musicians who were on your band, Rufus Webster, a pianist.
Oh, sure.
And Ira Pettiford, a trumpet player.
Oh, indeed.
They were, Rufus still lives here, and Ira has passed away.
Oh, I didn't even know that. I'm certainly sorry to hear that.
Well, that was several years ago. And Benny...
This is Rufus Webster.
Rufus is just fine. He's been in the school system in Minneapolis, St. Paul over the years and continues to play piano rarely in public. But these two gentlemen were on your band at a very important time when you were crossing the country and losing musicians to World War II. Any observations about Rufus Webster, the pianist?
Well, he was as lovely a gentleman as he was a pianist, and I remember him fondly. I've not been in touch with him, but when you're in touch with him, do give him my love.
Well, I certainly will, Benny, and perhaps I'm sure he will be with you on that Saturday night, August 9th, at Ordway Theater.
I certainly do hope so. I'd be delighted to see him.
Well, I know that Ira Pettiford was featured very often in your trumpet section.
Oh, what a wonderful man he was also.
Well, I think he was responsible for teaching Oscar Pettiford to play bass from the point of view of a trumpet. I don't know if that's absolutely true or not, but I remember Ira mentioning that.
Well, that explains a lot about Oscar.
Well, you certainly had a chance to observe Ira Pettiford as he worked in your brass section, and you're a trumpet player, and you look to him as a team worker. What kind of a musician was he?
Oh, he was an outstanding musician. Absolutely.
Well, I know you're a demanding gentleman when it comes to rehearsing and discipline. So I
don't know. Most of the musicians I employed or that I worked with at that time, I've never had to be too demanding because I chose them as much for their character as for their musicianship. And they were all wonderful people, and nobody had to hit them over the head to get them to do, the proper thing. It was all a wonderful experience.
Well, perhaps it was a loose term that I used there.
Well, no, I understand. I understand what you meant, indeed.
In all the time that you've been working, I'd like to just touch on your experiences with the British Broadcasting Corporation and those legendary sessions overseas in Europe prior to World War II. What was the atmosphere in London at that time in the field of music?
Well, of course, the difficulty there at the time was that no American musicians were allowed to play in England. That was sort of a reciprocal thing because of the treatment that the English musicians received at the hands of the American Federation of Musicians here. They couldn't play here either. So while the entire time I was in London when I was working for the BBC, I was there 22 months, and out of that time I was only allowed to perform in public twice. Once at a concert of all British musicians, and once as a soloist with a British orchestra that I was not conducting, but just as a guest soloist.
Well, as the time began to approach World War II, what was the atmosphere as you did your tours from Holland and the main continent and so on?
Well, I don't know. I'm not much of a political person. But so from that aspect, I can't tell you a great deal, but things were just going on just as per usual while I was there. And, of course, as an American, I was treated very well. I was not in Germany or any place where those terrible things were happening. Of course, there was a little feeling of approaching, what would you call it, conflict, but it didn't have very much to do with it. Of course, I must add that that was one reason that I did leave as I did, intending to go back at some later date. I suppose that was following the Anschluss, but I don't know I can't remember too well, you know.
Well, that's certainly going back in time.
That's almost 50 years ago.
Yes, it is. May I just touch on a couple of names in the past, such as a club called Leroy's at 135th and 5th Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
Your memories of that, what does that trigger in your mind?
Well, that triggers Bill Basie, who had not yet gotten the moniker of Count. You know, he was Bill Basie, and it was a small club in the basement of the 135th Street, Lenox Avenue, I believe, and that's when I was going around with my saxophone playing any place where I could.
You were just breaking in.
Just breaking in, and I was, going around trying to get a little experience and playing with anyone that would welcome me in, and Bill Basie was one of the people who welcomed me with open arms, and he was just playing there with a drummer, no bass, and when I played, it made it a trio. And I was very fond of him. Up until the very day he passed away, and I still retain a great fondness for his memory.
Another spot on that jazz map, Manhattan's Garden of Joy, Mamie Smith and her Jazz Hounds. What image is there?
Oh, that's where I first heard Coleman Hawkins playing with Mamie Smith. Where do you get these names? Were these in that book?
Well, there's a booklet, of course, that Time Life has produced that is very comprehensive in telling, the background and the information that concerns your life.
I haven't looked at that in such a long time. I didn't know whether you got that out of there or the other book, the Benny Carter, A Life in American Music by Mauro Berga.
Yes, the 2-volume set.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yes, of course.
Well, he, of course, spelled it out in a summary form for the Time Life booklet, too.
Yes, that's right.
Well, certainly these were life experience learning places, weren't they? The college, really, so to speak.
Oh, and I was very, very fortunate to be, what I might say, under the wing of such people as Basie and Willie Smith, the Lion, of course.
Willie the Lion.
Willie the Lion, and,
When you mentioned Willie the Lion, what kind of a teacher was he, as far as you're concerned?
Well, I played with him with the same sort of combination, just the drummer and Willie and me on saxophone, Willie on piano. And, of course, by this time, I was a little further advanced, and I was being paid. Not much, but being paid. And I was a regular employee or regular member of the trio, as it was. Willie was sort of gruff, kind, and very honest. And he gave me a lot of excellent pointers that have served me all these years. But he was very kind to me. He used to always call me kid. Hey, kid, so and so and so, But he was sort of like a warm-hearted father at that time.
I think I can still see him with his derby and his cigar, and kind of with an exterior which is sort of rough and tough, with a heart of, I suppose, gold, huh?
Pure gold, believe me. And he never took the cigar out of his mouth to talk.
Never. Non-stop.
That's right.
Oh, yes. Benny Carter, it is a privilege to have you talking with us, and there are listeners in this area who have followed you through the years.
Well, I hope they'll be following me. When is it, on the October 9th?
Saturday, and you'll be welcome into Ordway Theater as a part of the Twin Cities Jazz Festival, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the environment.
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in the flesh.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks for taking time out there in Los Angeles, and keep well, and we'll look forward to seeing you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thanks for the call.
Good night.
Good night.